Stephan Mitchell sat on the deck of the Second Chance, reading Antonio's notebook. Giuseppe had given him the notebook 3 days earlier. Antonio's notes, the old man had said. About the boat, about the sea, about life. Maybe they'll teach you something. The notebook had yellowed pages. Antonio's handwriting was neat, but some parts had faded. Stephan examined each page carefully. Technical drawings, calculations, observations. But Antonio's personal notes interested him most. One page in particular caught his attention. The title, The Wisdom of the Wind, May 15th, 1930. Today my father and I went out to the open sea. The southwest wind unexpectedly shifted to the northeast. My father wanted to sail against the wind. We had a plan, he said. We were going south. But I noticed there was tension on the boat. The sails were too tight, the masts were creaking, the boat was rocking. We were fighting the wind, Dad, I said. Why don't we go with the wind? The north is beautiful too. At first he resisted. But then he eased the sails. He changed course, and a miracle happened. The boat stabilized. It quieted down. It sped up. The wind was behind us now. Not an enemy, but a friend. That day I learned, those who fight the wind lose. Those who dance with the wind win. I guess life is like that too. We have plans, we have goals. But sometimes life starts blowing in a different direction. Then we have to make a choice. Either we fight and wear ourselves out, or we dance and go with the flow. I choose to dance. Stephan read the note 3 times. With each reading, he found a different meaning. The first time, it was just a technical observation. The second time, it was a philosophy of life. The third time, it was his own story. Since the war, he had been fighting the wind. He rebelled against it, changing the course of his life, taking his family, destroying his plans. He tried to regain control. But the more he fought, the more exhausted he became. Maybe Antonio was right. Maybe it was time to dance. Giuseppe was approaching the pier. He had coffee cups in his hand. Good morning, Stephan. You're up early. I couldn't sleep, said Stephan. I was reading Antonio's notebook. I found this note. He showed him the page of the notebook. Giuseppe read it carefully. He smiled. Ah, yes. I remember this note. Antonio was 14 that day. He was a very smart boy. I was a man who stuck rigidly to my plan. But he was flexible, and he taught me flexibility. This lesson, said Giuseppe, was Antonio's most important lesson. Not just in sailing, but in life. Don't fight the wind, dance with it. But how? Asked Stephan. How do you dance with the wind? I'm a soldier, Giuseppe. I was taught to fight, not to dance. Giuseppe sat down, sipped his coffee. To dance means to accept what life gives you. But this isn't passivity. It's active acceptance. Finding a new course, seeing new opportunities. For example, Giuseppe continued, you didn't plan to come to Monterey. Life pushed you here. The wind blew you this way. If you had resisted, you might not have survived. But you accepted it. You came. And now look where you are. You're healing, making friends, starting to live. Stephan thought about it. Giuseppe was right. If he had stayed in Baltimore, struggling with pain, clinging to the past, he might have collapsed by now. But coming to Monterey, following a new path, had saved him. Today, said Giuseppe, I want to teach you something. How to read the wind. Really read it. Not just its direction, but its character, its language. The language of the wind, said Stephan, surprised. Yes, said Giuseppe. Every wind is different. The north wind is cold and harsh. The south wind is warm and soft. The east wind is dry and steady. The west wind is humid and changeable. If you learn these things, you will never get lost at sea. But more importantly, said Giuseppe with that wise light in his eyes, you learn metaphor from the wind. You learn to read the winds of life. Which wind is temporary, which is permanent. Which wind is dangerous, which is an opportunity. That day, Giuseppe and Stephan set out to sea, but not to fish, to read the wind. The first lesson was the morning wind. A light, indecisive wind. This, said Giuseppe, wetting his finger and holding it up to the air, is the morning wind. It forms as the sun rises. From land to sea, weak but steady. Now close your eyes, said Giuseppe. Just feel it. Feel the wind on your skin. Stephan closed his eyes. A light breeze brushed his face. It was cool, but a pleasant coolness. It carried the salty smell of the sea. What do you feel? Asked Giuseppe. Lightness, said Stephan. Peace, as if an awakening. Right, said Giuseppe. The morning wind, the wind of new beginnings. Light but full of hope. Antonio loved this wind. "Dad," he would say, "the morning wind tells me that today anything is possible." The second lesson was the midday wind. When the sun was at its zenith, the wind picked up. It changed direction, coming from the west. "This," said Giuseppe, "is the midday wind. Strong, persistent, sometimes harsh. It stirs up the waves, rocks the boat. Inexperienced sailors fear it. But don't you be afraid," said Giuseppe. "The midday wind tests you, the boat, your skills. But if you use it right, this," said Giuseppe, "is the midday wind. Strong, persistent, sometimes harsh. It whips up the waves, rocks the boat. Inexperienced sailors fear it. But don't you be afraid," said Giuseppe. "The midday wind tests you, the boat, your skills. But if you use it right, you'll make the fastest journey with this wind." Stephan adjusted the sail. At first it was difficult. The wind was too strong, the sail was out of control. But then he followed Giuseppe's instructions. Loosen the sail, turn the rudder slightly to the left, balance the boat's center of gravity, and suddenly the boat sped up. A smooth flowing motion. The wind was no longer an enemy. It was a co-pilot. "Did you see that?" said Giuseppe proudly. "You didn't control the wind. You worked with it. That's the dance." The third lesson was the evening wind. As the sun set, the wind changed again. It slowed down, shifted direction. "The evening wind," said Giuseppe, "is the most deceptive. It seems calm but is unpredictable. One minute it's there, the next it's gone. An inexperienced sailor gets lost in this wind." "What should I do?" asked Stephan. "Be patient," said Giuseppe. "You can't fight the evening wind. You can't control it. You just wait, you watch for opportunities. When the wind comes, you use it. When it goes, you stop." Stephan tried it. He unfurled the sails and waited. The wind came, the boat moved forward. The wind stopped, the boat slowed down. It came again, it moved forward again. It was frustrating at first, but then he caught the rhythm. It was like dancing, really. Forward, stop, forward, stop. "This," said Giuseppe, "is the rhythm of life. Sometimes fast, sometimes slow. Sometimes you move forward, sometimes you stop. But if you accept the rhythm, you won't get tired. You'll stay in the flow." As they returned to the harbor, Stephan noticed something else. The wind wasn't just a physical force. It was a teacher. Every wind carried a lesson. The morning wind, new beginnings, hope, possibilities. The afternoon wind, strength, testing, growth. The evening wind, flexibility, patience, rhythm, and the night wind. He hadn't learned that one yet. When they reached the pier, Marco was waiting. "How did it go?" he asked. "Instructive," said Stephan. "Very instructive. Did Giuseppe give you a lesson on the wind?" Marco asked, smiling. "Yes," said Stephan. "But it feels like it wasn't just a lesson on the wind. It was more like a lesson on life." Marco nodded. "Because it was. Giuseppe uses the sea as a metaphor. He's not just giving you technical knowledge. He's giving you life knowledge." That evening, as Stephan sat in his cabin, he looked out the window. The wind was blowing. But this time it wasn't just wind. It was a message. A message from nature, from life, from the universe. Don't fight. Dance. Go with the flow. Don't try to control. Adapt. He turned to his notebook and wrote, November 20th, 1946. The 6th month, today, I learned one of the most important lessons, the secrets of the wind. Antonio wrote in his notebook, "Those who fight the wind lose. Those who dance with the wind win. I had been fighting for 6 months. With life, with pain, with the past. But today I understood. I cannot win by fighting. I can only win by dancing. Giuseppe taught me 3 wins, morning, noon, evening. Each has its own character, its own lesson, but the real lesson is this. The wind changes. It changes constantly, and I must not resist this change. I must adapt. Margaret, Thomas, Emily. Losing them was a change in the wind. A terrible, painful change. But the change was real, and by clinging to the old course, I only wore myself down. Now I accept the new course. Monterey, fishing, Giuseppe, this community. This is my new wind, and I will dance with it, because Antonio was right. Those who fight the wind lose. Those who dance with it win." He put down his pen. Outside, the wind was still blowing. But now it wasn't frightening. It was a friend. The next morning, Stephan woke up early. Dawn had not yet broken, but he sensed something in the air. A different energy. He opened the window and looked outside. There was no wind. Complete stillness. The sea was like glass. The trees didn't move at all. Even the birds were silent. This was strange. In Monterey, the wind always blew. Every day, every hour. But now, nothing. He quickly got dressed and ran to the pier. He found Giuseppe. The old man was looking at the boats intently. "Giuseppe," said Stephan, "there's no wind." "I know," said Giuseppe, his voice serious. "The calm before the storm. The calm before the storm." "Yes," said Giuseppe. "Before the storm comes, the wind stops. The sea calms down. It's as if it's holding its breath." And then he made an explosion gesture with his hand. "The storm begins." Stephan looked at the horizon. The sky was clear. Not a single cloud. "But the weather is fine. How can there be a storm?" "You'll understand with experience," said Giuseppe. The air pressure drops. The smell of the sea changes. The seagulls return to shore. "Look over there." He pointed to the pier. Hundreds of seagulls sat silently. They weren't flying at all. "How many hours?" asked Stephan. 3, maybe 4, said Giuseppe. "It will start in the afternoon, and it will intensify at night. What should we do?" "We tie up the boats. We tie them up securely. Then we go home and wait. You can't go out to sea in this storm." All morning, the fishermen made preparations. The boats were double-tied to the pier. The sails were lowered and tightly packed away. The engines were checked. Everything was made safe. Around noon, the first signs came. A light wind began, but it was a strange wind, warm, humid, unsettling. It was as if the air was becoming tense. "This," said Giuseppe, "is the wind before the storm. The warning wind. It's telling you, get ready." "I'm coming." Stephan felt this wind. It sent a shiver down his spine. It wasn't pleasant. It wasn't hopeful like the morning wind. It wasn't invigorating like the afternoon wind. It was threatening. At 2 in the afternoon, the sky began to change. From the west came dark gray clouds, slow, heavy, threatening. They covered the sun, darkening the sky. "Here it comes," said Marco, looking up at the sky. "It's going to be a big storm. Maybe the biggest of the season." "Everyone go home," said Giuseppe. "William, you stay with me. Stephan, you too. We'll wait together." 3 men gathered in Giuseppe's hut. Outside, the wind was picking up. The first raindrops were hitting the windows. "Now," said Giuseppe, pouring wine, "you will learn about the night wind. The most dangerous but the most instructive. The night wind," continued Giuseppe, "is powerful. It is invisible. It is unpredictable. It is not gentle like the morning wind. It is not testing like the afternoon wind. It's not playful like the evening wind. The night wind is pure power. And tonight," said Giuseppe, "there will be a very special night wind. A November storm. It comes once a year. It tests everything. Boats, houses, people." William looked out the window. The wind was howling now. The trees were bending, branches were breaking. The rain had started to fall heavily. "This scares me," said William. "It reminds me of the typhoons in Okinawa." "Yes," said Stephan, going over to William. "But that was war. This is nature. Remember the difference." "What difference?" asked William. "War wants to destroy you," said Stephan. "But nature is just showing its power. It's testing you. But it doesn't want to kill you. It just wants to teach you." "Teach me what?" asked William. Giuseppe replied, "Humility. No matter how strong you are, nature is stronger. No matter how much you try to control it, nature is uncontrollable. And that's a beautiful thing." "Beautiful?" said William in surprise. "This storm is beautiful?" "Yes," said Giuseppe, "because it puts you in your place. You are a small part of the universe, and that is a fact that must be accepted." As the night progressed, the storm intensified. The wind was no longer just howling, it was roaring. The walls of the cabin shook. The windows rattled. Outside objects flew through the air. At midnight, the power went out. Darkness fell. Giuseppe lit the candles. The 3 men sat silently around the fire. Now, Giuseppe said softly, "comes the deepest lesson. In the dark, in the storm, when you can see nothing, you can only feel." "Close your eyes," Giuseppe said. "Both of you. Just listen." Stephan and William closed their eyes. At first, they heard only the sound of the wind. The howling, the screeching, the roaring, chaotic, terrifying sounds. But then Giuseppe spoke. "Listen deeper. To the sound beneath the wind. To the silence at the heart of the storm." Stephan listened more carefully. He tried to get past the sound of the wind. And he noticed something. Within the chaos, there was a rhythm. It seemed irregular, but there was actually a pattern. Strong wind, then a slight pause, then strong wind again. Again, again, again. "Do you see?" said Giuseppe. "Even the storm has a rhythm. It looks chaotic, but it's actually orderly. Nature is never completely chaotic. There's always a balance, a rhythm. William opened his eyes. But does this rhythm protect us? What if the cabin collapses? It won't collapse, said Giuseppe. Because this cabin is built to withstand it. It looks chaotic, but it's actually orderly. Nature is never completely chaotic. There is always a balance, a rhythm. William opened his eyes. But does this rhythm protect us? What if the cabin collapses? It won't collapse, said Giuseppe. Because this cabin was built in harmony with nature. Antonio and I built it in 1925. We placed every plank with the wind in mind. Not rigid, but flexible. It doesn't resist, it bends. That's why it stands. Life is like that, Giuseppe continued. If you're rigid, you break. But if you're flexible, you bend, but you don't break. Antonio knew that. That's why he always stayed flexible. Stephan thought about it. Being rigid. 6 months ago, he had been very rigid. Colonel Mitchell was rigid as steel. Nothing could bend him. But when he lost Margaret, Thomas, Emily, he broke. He shattered. Now he was learning to be flexible. To bend, to adapt, to dance. And he wasn't breaking. He was wounded, but he was whole. Around 3 in the morning, the storm reached its peak. The wind was incredibly powerful. Tiles flew off the cabin roof. One of the windows cracked. But the cabin stood. Now, said Giuseppe, it's time to deliver the night wind's true message. He got up and went to the door. Come on, let's go outside. What? Said William, shocked. In the middle of the storm? Yes, said Giuseppe. Don't be afraid, just to the threshold. You'll feel it. The 3 men opened the door. The wind rushed in. Strong, harsh, merciless. Stephan was almost blown backwards. But Giuseppe held him. Now, Giuseppe shouted above the wind's roar. Shout. Whatever you feel, shout it at the wind. William hesitated. But then he did something. He shouted. I'm scared. I'm still scared. The wind took his voice, carried it away, carried it to the depths of the sea. Keep going, said Giuseppe. I can't forget the war, shouted William. I see it every night. Every night. The wind took it again. Carried it away. Giuseppe turned to Stephan. Your turn. Stephan hesitated. But then something came from within him. 6 months of pain, anger, guilt. It all came to the surface. My family is dead, he shouted at the storm. I couldn't protect them. The wind took it. I lost 93 men. I remember every one of their faces. The wind took it, and I'm still here! Why am I alive? The wind took it. Stephan fell to his knees. He was crying. But this time it wasn't just from the pain. There was relief too. Finally, he had let it all out. He didn't hide it, didn't suppress it. He told the storm. Giuseppe and William carried him inside. They closed the door. Stephan sat by the fire, shivering. Now do you understand? Said Giuseppe. The message of the night wind. Stephan raised his head. What message? Catharsis, said Giuseppe. Purification. The night wind brings out the storm inside you. You've been carrying that pain for 6 months, quietly, inside. But tonight, you told the storm, and the wind took it away. Now, said Giuseppe, you feel lighter. Because the burden has lessened. Stephan noticed it. He really was lighter. The weight on his chest had lessened. It was still there, but it was lighter. By morning, the storm had slowed. As the sun rose, it stopped. The sun came out. The clouds dispersed. It was as if nothing had happened. When they went outside, they saw the damage. Trees had fallen, branches were broken, roof tiles were scattered everywhere. But the boats were safe. They were still tied up just as Giuseppe had left them. See? Said Giuseppe. Proper preparation, proper harmony. You weather the storm. Stephan looked at the second chance. His boat was intact, not a scratch on it. The boat Antonio had built had weathered the storm. That day, Stephan learned many things. The night wind was the strongest, but also the most cleansing. The storm was not something to fear, but to respect. Releasing the storm inside was part of healing. And most importantly, dancing with the wind applied not only in fair weather, but also in storms. That evening, he returned to his notebook. November 21st, 1946. Storm night. I experienced the most violent storm of my life. But it wasn't war. It was nature. Giuseppe taught me the night wind. The strongest, most dangerous, but most instructive one. In the middle of the storm, I shouted at him. My pain, my anger, my guilt. I said it all. And the wind took it away. Now I feel lighter. The burden is still there, but it's bearable. I found another note in Antonio's notebook. The storm is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It shows you how strong, how weak, how flexible you are. Today I learned, I am weak, but I am flexible. And that is enough. After the storm, there was a strange calm in Monterey. The sea had entered its most tranquil period of the year. The wind was light, predictable. The sun often broke through. It was as if nature had grown weary after that great upheaval and was now resting. Stephan went out to sea early every morning. But now it wasn't just to fish. To watch the wind, to reinforce the lessons Giuseppe had taught him. Every day, he observed a different wind. The northwest wind, cold and sharp. The southeast wind, warm and humid. The east wind, dry and steady. Each had its character. Each had its message. One morning, Giuseppe made a suggestion. "Stephan, I want to give you a test." "What kind of test?" "A wind test," said Giuseppe. "You will go out to sea alone." "I won't come. One day, from morning until evening. Just you, the boat, and the wind." Stephan hesitated. "But what if I get lost?" "You won't get lost," said Giuseppe, "because you've learned to read the wind. But more importantly, you've learned to read yourself." "Myself?" "Yes," said Giuseppe. "The wind isn't just outside. It's inside, too. If you don't know the wind inside you, you can't understand the wind outside." That morning, Stephan set out alone. Second Chance glided silently out of the harbor. Giuseppe, Marco, and William watched him go. No one said anything. This was Stephan's test. The first hour was normal. The wind was light, the sea calm. Stephan headed for the northern cove, Antonio's special place, the place Giuseppe had taken him. But in the second hour, something changed. The wind stopped. Complete stillness. The sails slackened, the boat slowed. Stephan looked around. The water was like glass. Not a ripple, it was unsettling. The wind always blew in Monterey. But now, there was nothing. He remembered Giuseppe's words. Stillness always carries a message. Either a storm is coming or something internal will happen. Stephan waited. He could have used the engines, but he didn't. Giuseppe had said, "Learn with the wind." The engine was cheating. He waited until noon. No wind came. The sun was high, hot. Stephan sat in the shade, drank water. He tried to be patient, but there was a restlessness inside him, a feeling of loss of control. Soldier Stephan hated this. "I'm wasting time," he would say. "I must act." But now, there was a different voice inside him. Giuseppe's voice. Wait, observe, learn. At 2 in the afternoon, something happened. Stephan looked at the surface of the water. He noticed a strange pattern, small circular ripples. But there was no wind. He leaned over and looked closer. Just below the surface of the water, there was movement. Fish? No, something else. He put his hand in the water. Cool but pleasant. And in that moment, he felt something. A vibration, slight, but it was there. The water current, he murmured. Giuseppe had mentioned this. When there's no wind, use the current. Water always flows in one direction. Find that direction. Stephan watched carefully. The ripples were moving northeast. Very slowly, but they were moving. He adjusted the rudder. He gathered the sail, pulled out the oar, and slowly he began to row in the direction of the current. The progress was very slow, but at least he was moving. He wasn't just sitting there, being passive, active but without forcing it, in harmony with the current. An hour later, he noticed something else. The weather was changing. The temperature was dropping. The humidity was rising, and on the horizon far away, a small cloud had appeared. The wind is coming, he said to himself. But from where? He used his nose. Giuseppe had taught him, smell the wind. If it's cold, it's from the north. If it's warm, it's from the south. If it's humid, it's from the west. If it's dry, it's from the east. He sniffed the air. Humid, but also cool. A mixed scent. Northwest, he said. A northwest wind is coming. And 10 minutes later, he saw he was right. A light breeze came from the northwest. Cool, damp, slightly salty. He immediately unfurled the sail, set it at the right angle, and the boat slowly picked up speed. The wind grew stronger. By around 4 in the afternoon, it was a good wind. Stephan sailed towards the northern cove, but then he made a decision. He didn't want to go to the northern cove, but somewhere else, east, along the coast, somewhere he had never seen before. This was contrary to the plan. Giuseppe had said, "Go to the northern cove, turn around, and come back." But Stephan felt something. A call from the east, dance with the wind, he murmured. Not the plan, the feeling. He changed course. He turned east. The wind was perfect. The boat glided smoothly. An hour later, he found a small cove. It wasn't on the map. Or maybe it was, but Stephan hadn't noticed. A narrow, rocky, hidden cove. He steered the boat into the cove. He turned off the engine. He remained in silence. The cove was beautiful. The water was clear. The sand was white. The rocks were covered in green seaweed. There were birdsong, but no human voices. Stephan anchored the boat. He jumped ashore. He walked on the sand. For the first time, he was walking on sand in Monterey. He climbed the rocks. He reached the top. He sat there looking around. The horizon was endless. The ocean was deep blue. The sun was beginning to set. The sky had turned orange and pink, and in that moment, he understood something. Something very deep, very simple. The wind was not just a force that moved things. It was a guide. The horizon was endless. The ocean was deep blue. The sun had begun to set. The sky had turned orange and pink, and in that moment, he understood something. Something very deep, very simple. The wind was not just a force that moved things. It was a guide. If you listened to the voice within, it would take you where you needed to go. Today, he could have stuck to the plan. He could have gone to North Cove, but the voice inside him said, "Go east." And he listened to that voice, and he came here, to this beautiful, peaceful, perfect place. Margaret always said, sometimes you have to deviate from the plan. Life is calling you somewhere else. Stephan didn't understand back then. The plan is important, he would say. Discipline is the key to success, but now he understood. Margaret was right. Sometimes straying from the plan was the right thing to do. He sat there until sunset. He didn't think about anything. He didn't do anything. He just existed. The wind caressed his hair. The sun warmed his face. The sea sang to him, and for the first time in 6 months, he was truly at peace. Complete, deep, perfect peace. As darkness fell, he returned to the boat. It was time to head back to port, but he wasn't lost anymore. The stars had come out. The North Star was shining. Giuseppe had taught him, the North Star never deceives you. It always points north. Looking at the North Star, he headed southwest, toward Monterey. When he reached the harbor, it was midnight. Everyone was asleep. But Giuseppe was sitting on the pier waiting. How was it? He asked as Stephan tied up the boat. Perfect, said Stephan. The best day, but I didn't follow the plan. I didn't go to the northern bay. I went east. I know, said Giuseppe, smiling. How did you know? Because I watched the wind. And the wind was blowing east. You followed the wind. You did the right thing. But you told me to go to the northern cove. No, said Giuseppe. I said go out to sea. I didn't tell you where to go. Because the real lesson was this. Wherever the wind takes you, go there. Not the plan, but the feeling. Stephan smiled. Giuseppe was always one step ahead. Today, said Giuseppe, was the final test. And you passed. Now you can read the wind. But more importantly, you can read yourself. That night in his cabin, Stephan wrote his longest note. Today, I went out to sea alone. The first test, and the most important test. The wind stopped. Complete calm. The old Stephan would have panicked. I have no control, he would say. But the new Stephan waited. He observed I used the current. I waited for the wind, and when it came, I followed it. But the most important lesson was this. I deviated from the plan. A voice inside me said, go east. And I listened to that voice. I found a beautiful cove. I sat there and watched the sunset. And for the first time, I felt completely at peace. Margaret always said, sometimes you have to deviate from the plan. Now I understand. The wind isn't just a force. It's a guide. If you listen to the voice inside you, it will lead you to the right place. Another note from Antonio. The best sailors don't follow the map. They follow the wind. I'm following the wind now. The wind inside me, the wind outside, and this is freedom. He put down his pen. He looked out the window. The wind was blowing gently. A friendly, peaceful wind. Thank you. He whispered to the wind. You taught me a lot today. And the wind answered. Gently, softly, circling around the cabin, as if it were saying, you're welcome. And I have more to teach. When they went outside, they saw the damage. Trees had fallen, branches were broken, roof tiles were scattered everywhere. But the boats were safe. They were still tied up just as Giuseppe had left them, see? Said Giuseppe. Proper preparation, proper harmony. You weather the storm. Stephan looked at the second chance. His boat was intact, not a scratch on it. The boat Antonio had built had weathered the storm. That day, Stephan learned many things. The night wind was the strongest, but also the most cleansing. The storm was not something to fear, but to respect. Releasing the storm inside was part of healing. And most importantly, dancing with the wind applied not only in fair weather, but also in storms. That evening, he returned to his notebook. November 21st, 1946. Storm night. I experienced the most violent storm of my life. But it wasn't war. It was nature. Giuseppe taught me the night wind. The strongest, most dangerous, but most instructive one. In the middle of the storm, I shouted at him. My pain, my anger, my guilt. I said it all. And the wind took it away. Now I feel lighter. The burden is still there, but it's bearable. I found another note in Antonio's notebook. The storm is not your enemy. It is your teacher. It shows you how strong, how weak, how flexible you are. Today I learned I am weak, but I am flexible. And that is enough. Winter was deepening. The days grew shorter, the nights longer. But for Stephan, this season was no longer gloomy. On the contrary, he found it instructive. Giuseppe woke him early one morning. Today we have a special lesson. We will learn about winter winds. Winter winds? Are they different? Very different, said Giuseppe. Winter winds are the most honest. They don't lie, they don't play games. They announce their arrival. They announce their departure. But at the same time, they are the harshest. That morning was particularly cold. Stephan put on his thick coat and gloves. But Giuseppe was wearing only a thin sweater. Aren't you cold? Asked Stephan. No, said Giuseppe. Because I'm friends with the wind. It's not my enemy. The wind doesn't make its friends cold. It just warns them. They set out to sea. As they moved away from the shore, the temperature dropped even further. The wind was sharp and cold. When it hit your face, it stung. This, said Giuseppe, is the north wind. The king of winter. It comes from the Arctic. It travels thousands of kilometers, and with every kilometer it grows colder. But look, said Giuseppe, wetting his finger and holding it up to the air. This wind is steady. Its direction doesn't change. Its speed is consistent. That's a good thing, because it means it's predictable. Winter winds, Giuseppe continued, are reliable. Summer winds are fickle. Here 1 hour, there the next. But winter winds are steadfast. They come, they stay, they go. Clear? Stephan felt it. Indeed, the wind was steady. It blew steadily from the north. It was strong but predictable. Now, said Giuseppe, I'll show you a technique. In winter winds, you set the sail differently. Less surface area, more control. Stephan watched intently. Giuseppe set only half the sail. Like this, he said. If you open it fully, the wind is too strong. You can't control it. But if you open it halfway, you get enough speed, but you also maintain control. Stephan took the helm. He sailed with the sail half open. At first it felt strange. The sail seemed incomplete. But then he felt the difference. The boat was more balanced, more controlled. See? Said Giuseppe. Sometimes less is more. Using full power isn't always the best choice. Sometimes measured power is better. This, said Giuseppe, applies to life too. You've always lived at full power. In the army you gave 100%. With your family you gave 100%. But then you burned out, because you had no reserves left. Now you're learning. Give 70%. Leave 30% in reserve. For yourself, for unexpected situations, for rest. Stephan thought about this. Giuseppe was right. He had lived his whole life at full power. He had never left any reserves. And in the end, he had collapsed. Around noon, the wind picked up a bit more. Giuseppe said, now is the critical moment. Winter winds peak around noon. If it keeps getting stronger, it could turn into a storm. But if it stabilizes, it's just a strong day. Stephan watched carefully. The wind grew stronger for a while longer. Then, it stopped. It stabilized. It wasn't getting stronger, but it wasn't weakening either. There, said Giuseppe. It stabilized, so no storm today. Just a strong winter day. In the afternoon, Giuseppe taught something else. Now I'll show you how to listen to the wind. Listen to the wind? Yes, said Giuseppe. Every wind makes a sound. A light wind whispers. A moderate wind talks. A strong wind shouts. But you must listen not only to the sound, but also to the tone. Giuseppe closed his eyes. Listen, what is the tone of this wind? Stephan closed his eyes. He listened carefully. The wind was whistling on the boat. A deep, long, steady whistle. A deep sound, said Stephan. Uninterrupted. Right, said Giuseppe. This is the sound of a calm wind. Strong but calm. If the sound is choppy, the wind is restless. A storm may be coming. But this sound is steady, which means the wind is peaceful. The peacefulness of the wind, said Stephan in surprise. Yes, said Giuseppe. The wind also has a mood. Sometimes calm, sometimes angry, sometimes cheerful. If you can read this mood, you know what to do. Stephan found this strange but logical. The wind should be thought of as a living being. It had a personality, a mood, an intention. Towards evening, as they returned to the harbor, something else happened. The wind suddenly changed, to the northwest, and it got warmer. Interesting, said Giuseppe. The evening wind is warm. That's rare. Usually the evening wind is cold. What does that mean? Asked Stephan. Change, said Giuseppe. The weather will change. Maybe tomorrow, winter will stop. Maybe for a few days, mild weather will come. You can tell that from the wind? Yes, said Giuseppe. If you spend years at sea, the wind starts talking to you. It gives you clues. You learn to read them. That night, sitting around the fire in Giuseppe's cabin, William joined them. The young man was excited. I noticed something today, said William. This morning when the wind was calm, I felt calm inside. Afternoon, when the wind picked up, I felt restless. It's as if the wind affects me. Of course it does, said Giuseppe. The wind isn't just outside. It's inside, too. You are part of the wind. It is part of you. How so? Asked William. Think of it this way, said Giuseppe. You breathe. Breath is wind. It's as if the wind affects me. Of course it does, said Giuseppe. The wind isn't just outside. It's inside, too. You are part of the wind. It is part of you. How so? Asked William. Think of it this way, said Giuseppe. You breathe. Breath is the wind in miniature. The wind is the breath of the world. Every time you breathe, you connect with the wind. It enters you, and you enter it. And, continued Giuseppe, the wind carries your mood. A calm wind carries calmness. A restless wind carries restlessness. An energetic wind carries energy. You take in that energy. Stephan thought about this. It was true that he felt different on windy days. Some days energetic, some days restless, some days calm. Perhaps it was because of the wind. So, said Stephan, which wind is best? Which wind should we prefer? Giuseppe smiled. All of them. Because every wind carries a lesson. A calm wind teaches peace. A strong wind teaches resilience. A variable wind teaches adaptability. And most importantly, said Giuseppe, the absence of wind, that also teaches a lesson. Stillness, said William. Yes, said Giuseppe. Stillness is the hardest lesson because nothing happens. You just have to wait. And that's the hardest thing for modern man, because we always want to move, to do something. But stillness, continued Giuseppe, teaches you patience. It teaches acceptance. And most importantly, it teaches you to look within. When there's wind, said Giuseppe, you look outside. You watch the wind. You steer the boat. But when there is no wind, you look inside. You watch yourself. You steer yourself. Stephan remembered his own experience of stillness. The day he went east, there was no wind for hours. And in those hours, he had learned a lot. About himself, about life, about peace. Giuseppe, said Stephan, you're not really teaching about the wind. You're teaching about life. The wind is just a tool. Giuseppe nodded. Yes, Antonio realized this. Father, he would say, you think you're teaching fishing, but you're actually teaching life. Me too, said Giuseppe. I understood years later. The sea, the boat, the fish, the wind. These are just tools. What you really learn is life. How to live it, how to feel it, how to accept it. William listened quietly. Then he spoke. I lost a lot in the war. My friends, my innocence, my youth. But when I came here, I found something else. Not just peace, a path, a way of life. And this path, said William, is like the wind. Sometimes strong, sometimes weak, sometimes visible, sometimes invisible. But it's always there, and I'm following that path now. Giuseppe embraced William. That's it. You understand, too. You are no longer a student. You are a traveler. That night, Stephan returned to his notebook. December 18th, 1946. Winter lessons. Today, I learned about winter winds. They are the most honest, the most determined, the most reliable. Giuseppe showed me the half-sail technique. Less power, more control. It's the same in life. Give 70%, save 30. I learned to listen to the wind. Every wind has a voice, a tone, a mood, and most importantly, the wind is a teacher. It teaches me not just sailing, but life. Another note from Antonio. The wind is invisible but powerful. Just like love, You can't see it, but you can feel it, and it changes everything. I love the wind now. All its forms, calm, powerful, changeable, absent. They are all beautiful, because they all teach me something. And maybe life is like that too. Some moments are calm, some are stormy, but they are all valuable, because they all shape us. Outside, the winter wind was blowing, determined, steady, honest. Stephan listened to it, and the wind was singing him a song he couldn't hear before, the song of life. Christmas was approaching. The town had begun to decorate. Colorful lights on the pier, wreaths on the boats, candles in the windows of the houses. Everyone was enjoying the peace of the holiday, but for Stephan, this would be his first Christmas without his family. Margaret had always loved Christmas. She would decorate the house from top to bottom, cook special meals, prepare surprises for the children. This year, none of that would happen. Giuseppe noticed this. "Stephan," he said one morning, "I want to take you somewhere special today." "Where?" "It's a surprise," said Giuseppe with a smile. "But trust me, it's an important place." In the afternoon, they set off in Giuseppe's old pickup truck. They left the town and followed the coastal road. Half an hour later, they arrived at a deserted area. There was a small hill there. On the hill, a few trees, and under the trees, gravestones. "This is it," said Giuseppe, getting out of the truck. "The Rossi family cemetery. My grandfather, my father, my mother, and Antonio. They're all here." Stephan followed silently. Giuseppe went to Antonio's grave. The stone was simple but beautiful. Engraved on it, "Antonio Rossi, 1912 to 1931, lover of the sea, lover of life, lover of love." Giuseppe knelt down. He caressed the stone. "Hello, son. I miss you every day, but you know I still go out to sea in your boat. And I'm proud of you." Then he turned to Stephan. "Come, sit down. I want to share something with you." The two sat down beside the grave. From the hilltop, the ocean was visible. Blue, endless, peaceful. "Every year," said Giuseppe, "I come here before Christmas. I tell Antonio about my year. What I did, what I learned, who I met. This year," said Giuseppe, "I'll talk about you. I'll tell him that I taught him everything I told him about you. And I'll tell him that you remind me so much of him." Stephan's eyes filled with tears. I'm not as good as Antonio." "No," said Giuseppe. "You're not the same as Antonio, but you carry the same spirit. The spirit of learning, the spirit of openness, the spirit of change." Giuseppe took a small bottle out of his pocket. Inside was a note. "Every year," he said, "I write a letter to Antonio. Then I put it in the bottle and throw it into the sea. Maybe one day someone else will find it and learn Antonio's story. This year," said Giuseppe, "I'm going to ask you. You write a letter to Antonio. Tell him what you learned from him." Stephan hesitated. "But I never knew him." "You did," said Giuseppe. "Every day you knew him. Through his boat, through his notebook, through my stories. Antonio spoke to you, just in a different language." Giuseppe handed him a pen and paper. Write what comes from your heart." Stephan thought for a long time. Then he began to write. "Dear Antonio, my name is Stephan Mitchell. I am the man who sails your boat. Through second chance I met you. You died in 1931. I live in 1946. 15 years separate us. But it's as if we talk every day. Your father Giuseppe shares his love for you with me, and I am learning so much. Not just about sailing, about life. What you wrote in your notebook changed my life. Those who fight the wind lose. Those who dance with the wind win." This sentence became my new philosophy. I'm coming from war. My family is dead. I lost 93 men. I was broken, but I came to Monterey. I got on your boat. I met your father, and slowly I healed. You didn't just leave me a boat. You left me a path to life, and I'm following that path. Now Christmas is approaching, my first Christmas without my family. It will be painful, but you and Giuseppe showed me that family isn't just blood. Family is a bond of the soul, and now I have a family. Giuseppe, Marco, William, Martha, the whole community. They are my new family. You died young. You were only 19, but you left so much behind. A boat, a philosophy, a love, and I will carry on this legacy. I will sail your boat. I will live by your philosophy. I will love with your love. Thank you, Antonio. I never knew you, but you saved my life. Sincerely, Stephan Mitchell. When he finished the letter, he gave it to Giuseppe. The old man read it carefully. His eyes filled with tears. Perfect, he said. Antonio would be happy. They put the letter in the bottle. They sealed it tightly. Then they went down the hill to the shore. Now, said Giuseppe, we will perform a ritual. We will release the bottle into the sea. But first, we will say something. An intention. What we want. Giuseppe began. I, Giuseppe Rossi, release this letter into the sea. My intention. May Antonio's spirit find peace. And may his legacy inspire others. Then he turned to Stephan. Your turn, Stephan thought. Then he spoke. I, Stephan Mitchell, am releasing this letter into the sea. My intention, to keep learning, to keep dancing with the wind, and to give to others what Antonio, Giuseppe, all these people gave to me. Together, they threw the bottle into the sea. The bottle floated on the waves. Slowly it drifted away. The current took it, carried it off. Where will it go? Asked Stephan. I don't know, said Giuseppe. Maybe to Japan. Maybe to Hawaii. Maybe it will just come back here. But where will it go? Together they threw the bottle into the sea. The bottle floated on the waves. Slowly it drifted away. The current took it, carried it away. Where will it go? Asked Stephan. I don't know, said Giuseppe. Maybe to Japan. Maybe to Hawaii. Maybe it will just come back here. But wherever it goes, it will carry a message. Love never dies. It just changes form. On the way back, Giuseppe said something else. Stephan, tomorrow is Christmas Eve, and I'm inviting you to dinner. The whole community will be there. At Martha's Cafe. It will be a big feast. But said Stephan, my first Christmas without my family. It will be hard, I know, said Giuseppe. But that's why you should come. You shouldn't be alone. Families aren't just the ones we're born into. There are also the families we choose. When Christmas Eve arrived, Stephan went to Martha's Cafe. When he opened the door, he was surprised. Inside, there were more than 20 people. Giuseppe, Maria, Marco, Carlos, Antonio, Samuel, Danielle, Dr. Harrison, Elena, Catherine, Martha, and many others. Everyone called out to him, Welcome, Stephan! The table was laden with food. Fried fish, potato salad, vegetable stew, bread, desserts. Everyone had brought something. This, said Martha, is our tradition. On Christmas Eve, everyone brings something, and we eat together. Like a family. During the meal, everyone told stories. Giuseppe recounted the day Antonio built his first boat. Marco recounted their journey from Italy to America. William recounted meeting Stephan and how he changed. Then Martha stood up. Now, she said, there's one more tradition. Every year, we all share something. This year, something we're grateful for. One by one, everyone spoke. Carlos, I'm grateful for my health. I'm 75, but I can still go out to sea. Daniel, I'm grateful for this community. When I came back from the war, I was alone. But you accepted me, Elena. I'm grateful for my art. Painting taught me how to live again. It was Stephan's turn. He stood up and looked around. All these faces were looking at him. With love, acceptance, warmth. I, said Stephan, his voice trembling, am grateful for these 6 months. I came here in May. I was a dead man. My life was over. But you saved me. Giuseppe, he said, looking at the old man, you were like a father to me. You taught me not just sailing, but life. William, he said, looking at the young man, you were like a brother to me. We healed together. And all of you, he said, looking at the group, you became my family, not bound by blood, but by heart. This Christmas, said Stephan, tears streaming down his face, is my first Christmas without my family. But now I understand, I am not without family. It has just changed, and this new family is just as precious as the old one. Thank you. Thank you all. Everyone applauded. Giuseppe stood up and hugged Stephan. Welcome home, son. Welcome home to your family. The night went on with songs, stories, and laughter. Stephan lived every moment. He missed Margaret, Thomas, and Emily. He always would. But now that longing didn't destroy him. It only reminded him how much he had loved them. Close to midnight, Giuseppe made a suggestion. Come on, let's all go to the pier. Let's look at the stars. The group walked to the pier. The sky was clear. Thousands of stars were shining. The North Star was the brightest. Look, Giuseppe said to Stephan, the North Star. It never moves. It always points north. It's the sailor's guide. But, said Giuseppe, it's also a symbol. A fixed point. In life, no matter what, you need a fixed point. A value, a purpose, a love. What was your anchor? Asked Stephan. It was Maria, said Giuseppe. And Antonio. When I lost them, my anchor was gone. But then I found a new one. This community. This sea. This life. What's your anchor? asked Giuseppe. Stephan thought. It used to be Margaret, Thomas, Emily. When I lost them, I was lost. But now I have a new anchor point. What is it? The wind, said Stephan. Dancing with the wind. Going with the flow of life. Not resisting, accepting. This is my new North Star. Giuseppe smiled. Perfect. Antonio would be proud. That night, returning to his cabin, Stephan wrote his final note, December 24th, 1946, Christmas Eve, the end of the 6th month. Today, I wrote a letter to Antonio. I didn't know him, but it felt like I did. I went to the cemetery with his family. We threw the bottle into the sea, and I made a resolution to keep learning. In the evening, we had Christmas dinner with the community. The first Christmas without Margaret, Thomas, or Emily. It was painful, but it was also beautiful, because I have a new family. On the pier, we looked at the stars. Giuseppe talked about the North Star, a fixed point, my new fixed point, dancing with the wind. These 6 months taught me a lot. Patience, acceptance, flexibility, love. But most of all, they taught me this. The wind isn't just a force. It's a teacher. It teaches me about life, and I am now a good student. Antonio's final note. Life is like the wind. You can't control it, but you can dance with it. And dancing is the most beautiful thing. I dance. Every day, every wind. And I am now a good student. Antonio's final note. Life is like the wind. You can't control it, but you can dance. And dancing is the most beautiful thing. I dance. Every day, with every wind. And that is living. Outside, a light wind was blowing. A Christmas wind. Gentle, warm, friendly. Stephan opened the window. The wind came in. It caressed his hair. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for everything. And the wind answered. With a soft whisper, as if it were saying, You're welcome. And don't forget, I'm always here with you. Dance with the wind, always, Stephan smiled. He closed the window. He lay down on his bed, and that night, in his dream, he saw Margaret, Thomas, Emily. But this time there was no pain. Only love. They smiled at him, waved, and Margaret said something. We're proud of you. Keep dancing, Stephan woke up. His eyes were moist, but there was a smile on his face. Dawn was breaking. A new day. A new wind, and Stephan was ready.